Hello, and welcome to the Heart of Collaboration. And I'm your host, Bernice Belt, and I really appreciate you allowing us into your viewing audience. And we have one outstanding individual with us today. And I know I brag on all our guests, but all of our guests are worth bragging about. And today we have Dr. Peggy Bradford. She is the new president of Shawnee Community College, and she is based out of the main campus in Ullin, Illinois. And there are several different centers, but today we're not talking about all of that. We're talking about her journey from her childhood even up until this very day. So welcome, Dr. Peggy Bradford.
Thank you.
And Dr. Bradford, normally I kind of let people just kind of go for it, and I interject every now and then, but I do want to start off asking you to talk a little bit about your early childhood, and maybe brag a little bit about your parents and where you come from and some of your experiences as a child that became your foundation for the great person that you are today.
I have to say that just bragging about my parents is really easy. Both my parents, Lou D. and Tristella Jackson, were elementary school teachers. And from the time that we were children, let's say 2 years of age, they impressed upon us how important education was. Education for them meant that you had choices throughout life, and that one of the best activities that we engaged in as children was reading. And quite frequently, my dad and mom would read to us different stories. And so I felt that throughout my whole life journey, that reading has been one of the closest friends to me, that it allows you to travel all over the world and really get a chance to see the insight of different cultures, different people, and different opportunities that you can have in life.
Where were you born?
Born in Pulaski, Illinois. Pulaski has a total of 500 people in Pulaski County.
Big old town.
It's a big town, okay? And we jokingly say that about 300 are in the cemetery. But it's now that town has dwindled to 250 individuals. So over the years, we've seen people move away from Pulaski. And so it's really been a joy to be back at home in Pulaski, Illinois, in Pulaski County. I attended Meridian High School, and prior to getting to Meridian High School, I attended a school called Banneker Elementary. Banneker Elementary was in Pulaski, Illinois. It was a segregated school, and I attended that school up until about the 5th grade, and that's when schools were integrated. And I went to Mounds Titus School, and from there on to Meridian, where I graduated. While at Meridian, something that I was very pleased about is that I had an opportunity to attend Shawnee Community College. I was in the high school escrow program, and the director of the guidance counselor said, "Would you like to go to college? My wife needs 6 people in the class," and they had 5. So I had planned on going to college, but I ended up starting earlier, and it allowed me to finish my bachelor's degree before I turned the age of 20. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity.
Well, how about that?
Yes.
You know, some of the sweetest people, when I relocated to Paducah, Kentucky, some of the sweetest people that I met and that we still have good relationships came from Pulaski and Meridian and Mounds and some of those other smaller towns. I remember going and worshiping at some of the churches and singing and speaking and preaching and whatever they wanted me to do. Sometimes all I did was go and support and eat some chicken and potato salad.
Yes.
And there are still wonderful people in my life today. I don't see them that often, but they did impact my life. And I want to tell everybody, if you're from a small town, you're not small.
Yeah.
All the opportunities that are available in this great country of ours is still available to you. Now, the name of the high school that you attended, the school that you attended till you were in the 5th grade. Now, what was the name of that school again?
Banneker.
Banneker. And that was located where?
In Pulaski.
Okay.
And it's interesting because the school was right across from where I live. So my dad taught there.
Yes.
And I had an aunt that taught there at the school. And we were in what you would call a classroom where that your 1st and 2nd grade students were in the same classes. And it was an interesting experience because you had the opportunity to have advanced notice of what was going to happen to you in the second grade when you were in the first grade, and it just followed you all the way through.
Yes. So you come from a line of educators.
Yes.
And a line of people who respected education.
Yes.
They emulated it in various ways. We were talking about how your parents appreciated reading and the importance of it in your life growing up. What would you say that reading, what are some of the main points, or how can reading be that foundation for our youth today in any setting? Elementary, college, church, community, nonprofit. It doesn't make any difference. I'm just talking about reading.
Reading allows you to basically go all over the world in your mind. It provides you the foundation for critical thinking. Oftentimes when you go to college, people, and you're in the workplace, people will say, well, we need critical thinking skills. But those critical thinking skills come from you being able to read and to discern from what you're reading, what's important, what's significant. And that follows you all the way through. It also helps you to develop in terms of your factual information that you have. You begin to think about what is reality and what is not reality, and you can make a distinction between what is good research and that's what I call weak research in those areas. And so in those areas, I found that I have 5 sisters and 3 brothers. We're a family of 9. And so taking turns reading and sharing with each other and contacting each other when you see an article or a book, we continue that throughout our lives. There's something that's about article that you read, whether it's from a religious sector or art, culture, music, that you want to share that with other people. And so nowadays you can easily just forward that article on, or you can text, or you can refer people to different research engines. And so it's the foundation. If you develop those skills. When I went away to law school at the University of Iowa, I had approximately 300 to 400 pages that you have to read a night. And this is not light reading like magazine. You're actually taking out the foundation and the facts of a case and then being able to distinguish between those nuances and other facts. So the foundation that I had, I was used to reading. I had to read for my associate degree, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree that I have in criminal justice and administration and counseling, and in my law degree, and then later I went on to get an educational doctorate. All of those require a tremendous amount of reading. And while I practice as an attorney, in terms of an appellate attorney, some of your records that you're reading from the courts, from the lower court opinion, they're 10,000 pages. So if you don't like to read and you are going into that area, or you're a researcher, I tell people if you develop that early on, you feel like it's just second nature, and you just find a love of reading and writing. That's what you get from those areas.
Well, we want to come back to that term appellate in just a couple of minutes. But where did you get your associate? Where did you get your bachelor's? Where did you get your master's? And where did you get your doctorate?
My associate degree, I'm proud to say, from Shawnee Community College.
Okay.
And from there, I went to Southern Illinois University. And Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, I was able to transfer my credits, and all 63 credits transferred from my degree.
Outstanding.
Yeah. And then from Southern Illinois, while I was there, I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree.
Awesome.
And then I went to University of Iowa College of Law, and I graduated from there, focusing on corporate planning and business planning. And then later I went to Northern Illinois University, educational doctorate in leadership and policy development. I was very concerned about the different policies that surrounded education and looking at how we could work stronger to make sure that our students had a great foundation. And Northern Illinois University had one of the best programs in community college leadership. So I was very fortunate.
Yes. In terms of appellate, talk about that for a little bit, because, you know, we don't walk around talking like that. So help us out a little bit and talk a little bit about what that means and what it entails and so forth.
The appellate court reviews all of your opinions that you have at the lower court. The lower court can make a decision, and then if there's a basis to appeal because either procedurally there was something that was done wrong in your findings and facts, and that they find that there's a basis for you to appeal, I'm on the side of the prosecutor. So my job is to basically make sure that there's equity on both sides, but I'm also advocating for the state of Illinois to make sure that people who have committed a range, whether it's civil or criminal crimes, that they are justifiably incarcerated for that sentence. The appellate court in the state of Illinois, I was fortunate that I was based in Elgin. My sister worked for the same agency, and she worked in Springfield. And so over that time period, it's very unusual for an attorney to have cases that go to the Supreme Court of Illinois and for you to be in the appellate level. Most individuals will only have the opportunity to be at the trial level, but it's strictly research. So you're working only with attorneys and judges. The facts of the case are those facts that come up on the records that have been certified. So individual witnesses you don't encounter. Your work is done strictly with lawyers and with judges. But it's a great opportunity. Once again, it's reading, it's writing, and making an argument of whatever side you're on, that you have to have enough case law to support those findings.
So the appellate court, would you say, keeps the prosecuting attorneys out of trouble?
It keeps them out of trouble. It also helps you develop law so that you're in a position that when you see that there's laws that are inequitable, that you're able to address those.
Yes. And so there, everybody needs to cross their T's and dot their I's, whatever we're doing. And so the appellate court is the authority over the lower court?
Yes.
Okay. And now, what is the authority over the appellate court?
The Supreme Court.
Oh my
And
goodness,
so
you're right in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So you have the trial courts at the very beginning level where you have all of your witnesses and your evidence that comes in at that level. And then you have the appellate court reviewing to make sure that all of the procedures were followed correctly and that there was a fair trial for the individual. And then at the level, if it goes beyond the appellate court, which is rare, then it's your Illinois Supreme Court. And then over the Illinois Supreme Court, if you have any of those cases, they go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
And so the appellate court is a prosecutor's friend. And it is the appellate court is also the friend, really, of the lower court, because you want to make sure that everything was exactly the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so that if it makes it to Supreme Court, then you're more apt to maintain integrity and character in those cases.
Yes, and they're looking to see if there was an error that was committed throughout the trial proceeding.
And then that can be caught there at the appellate level. Awesome. Okay. All right. Everybody has to be held accountable.
Yes.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Prior to you being in the professional level in education, how did you operate as an attorney? I know that you had to pass board and you had to all of that. But did you practice law other than appellate?
I practice law as general counsel for a college. So as the attorney looking at different laws that impact higher education. One of the most frequent one is the family FERPA, what they call the Family Education Right to Privacy Act. And it's one of those laws that's kind of funny because parents that pay their children tuition often will come to the college and say, I want to see their grades. And they don't understand that if they're an adult, that the child must sign a release in order for you to see their grades. That we can't release those grades, we can't discuss anything with you about that child if they're an adult. So it's one of those that's really there to protect the privacy of the students, and it's there to make sure that even within an organization that you're not discussing a student unless you have a reason to have that conversation with another employee.
The whole idea of being adult is that all the laws that work for you and all the laws that keep us in line apply to our young people, 18 and older. And sometimes it's hard for parents to let go.
Yes.
And I'm a living witness, oh my goodness. Let's talk about some of the organizations, nonprofit organizations that you've been a part of maybe since college, particularly when you began studying for your master's. From your master's to the present, what are some of the organizations that you've been a part of, and maybe even some offices or positions that you've held in some of those organizations?
I've been involved in United Way, allocating funds to help support people in counseling, abuse, homelessness. The Girl Scout, I've been an active troop leader for the Brownies, the Daisies, and then I went on the board. Our region, our budget was $15 million. So some people looked at it as one of the largest regions in the state of Illinois.
Wow.
That sold a number of cookies to support us. And it allowed us to expose girls to computers, to STEM, to camping, to making sure that they were in a positions to make decisions as they grew older. The other is the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I held the Soror of the Year position, which requires a lot of work and giving back in the community, starting one of the first ACA teams. And this organization was, subgroup was founded to make sure that young girls early on could look at what they wanted to achieve in life, and that we were giving them the skills to focus on their finances, to look at their educational goals, to see if they were on point for being college ready, and then to help them find scholarships where that those that were not from affluent families had a way to pay for their college education. Some of the others that I was involved in was the early child care. Early child care was really important to me, and I later ended up being chairman for that whole division, was that for women who wanted to work early on. I can remember that it's a difficult decision if you are leaving your children at home and you don't know what kind of child care. The time that I had child care, it was $1,500 a month for 3 kids. Very few people could pay that. And I looked at other individuals as they were making decisions about where to leave their children and what kind of child care, and I began to look at accrediting child care early on, because there's child care and then there's child care that's accredited, and child care where that your children are actually being exposed to the best that they can be in terms of getting along with other kids, following directions, learning their basic skills so that as they move, they're able to progress through the educational system. And at that Elgin Daycare Center, I'm very proud to say that we achieved a grant and we were able to build a center that now is still there, and people are able to drop off their children and they have certified teachers there. And that has always been very important to me, that individuals who are less fortunate have the same kind of quality child care that other individuals who are more affluent have.
That is outstanding. Look at, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, when you look at this little bitty woman, she is power-packed and young and accomplished, and you made such a difference in the lives of so many people, children and parents and grown folk and folk who think they're grown, and older people and our elderly people, and I'm just so excited about that. I'm so excited that you're here to let people know that, because you know, you can't look at people and tell their whole story. So it's very important that you're here to because you give hope, you give help. And so a moment ago, did you mention STEM as it relates to Girl Scouts?
Yes.
Would you tell us what that acronym means, and then what it means within the Girl Scout, that whole Girl Scout arena?
Science, technology, engineering, and math. And in earlier days, Girl Scouts focused on cooking, baking, making the little pot holders. And so Girl Scouts is something that is really moved into a different time. And in that time, we're looking at those fields that women and girls tend not to be representative in. And before you become a woman, you're a girl. So if you don't start preparing your children early on to appreciate reading, to appreciate the acquisitiveness that you have in science and exploring the math, then they don't have the foundation to go into those fields. So to be an engineer, there's a lot of math required in that. A chemist, there's math involved in that. And all of those areas, I'm happy to say that we are seeing strides in those particular areas. One of the individuals who we were able to nominate as our distinguished alumni is from the Pulaski County area and attended through Shawnee, and she's an engineer. She found very few women along the way. And so those role models, we need to encourage more and more young ladies to go into that field. They're well-paying positions, and there's a need across the board from all different backgrounds for them to go into various areas of engineering.
I would think that you would agree that all of the black sororities have a tremendous emphasis on STEM.
Yes.
And also, you may agree that all area community colleges, including WKCTC, from where we're taping right now in the TV department, has an emphasis on those areas. Well, and then for all students, but certainly paying close attention to the female students. And so it seems that there has been a significant movement in STEM for women.
Yes.
And there has had to be a tremendous emphasis for black women. And starting with Girl Scouts is probably one of the most significant steps that has been taken in this country. And I'm so happy that I'm in a country, I'm so happy that I'm in an environment where somebody figured out and some persons came together to understand that that was not an option, that was a have to. Right. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to the universal power I believe in for all of that. I want to also ask you that about the importance of women supporting women, whether they are women of color, Caucasian women, at any age, any orientation, but the importance of women supporting women. You know, to spend a few minutes on that.
Women, over the years, you know, when you go into the work setting, you always hear about women being catty, backbiting, undermining, conniving, scheming, you name it. That's been what's been associated with women. And what I find is that when women have a common goal, and it's a shared goal, and they're actually focused on that goal, that they begin to galvanize their strength and their intellect, and they start focusing on that. I can only say that in being involved in the Girl Scout system that I found that. Alpha Kappa Alpha provided an opportunity. In fact, the person who mentored me early on was Dr. Jerry Sue Thornton, and she was the president of Cuyahoga Community College, and also an African-American female and an Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority sister. That I found that the guidance in terms of different books and articles were there to support. In other ways, I found that when I became at a point that I wanted to give back and work with the young ladies in the Acatine, I brought in other women who were leaders in their fields. If they were accountants, doctors, lawyers, whether they were African American, Hispanic, Caucasian, I wanted them to see women in leadership position, women who made more than six figures, women who had really created a power base and that were able to help other women achieve and move forward. And that's what I found that was so good about trying to change that narrative about women being catty. Yes, that does exist. However, I find that when you move yourself away from that and you try to get a comprehensive group together that's really focused on the goal, that I can see women doing exceptional things.
And so you qualified that it was Hispanic women, African American women, Caucasian women, and that the goal was to expose the girls to people who looked like them, and then people who didn't look like them.
Yes.
Because in this world, you know, we're going to interact with people who don't look like us, and whatever the race and ethnicity and the culture may be. And so those are good building blocks, because we need to learn how to communicate across the board. We hear people say communicate well up and down. I'm not so sure I like that up and down part, but I like to know that people like you, that you and people like you are always striving to ensure that girls and women understand the significance of being able to communicate well across the board.
Yes.
And that kind of touched my heart when you said that. I often tell people I teach, people I mentor, regardless of the area, the arena in which I teach, I always tell them, I said, you know, we all came from Africa, but we all don't admit it. And but along the line, the DNA was mixed here and there, and we are related in many ways to each other. And then to fight and to argue and to come against is futile, because the universe was not wrapped for that to be a successful way to go. And so it's wonderful that with your background and the examples that you are setting, not trying to set, but you're setting, feeds that positive tummy of our girls and our women. And I appreciate you so much, Dr. Bradford. And I know that this episode of The Heart of Collaboration is going to impact a number of people. And we're going to be leaving in a minute or so. And so what would you like to say as we get ready to say bye-bye to everybody?
I'd like to say, for those parents that are often challenged in terms of how can I help my child be successful? What do I need to instill in them? I may not have a degree, but what can I do for my child? And I have 3 things that I feel are critical that help me with my children, and I think it's universal. If you take the time to pray with your children and not just make up a prayer, but actually work with them so that they understand what it's about. The other is that create that opportunity for them to read and to have a quiet space, and for them to see you reading and to see how you respond to reading and learning. It's powerful in terms of what it can do for a child. And the other one is that to have them be open to all kinds of people and understand that you will work with men and women far and near. You will be able to go all over the world, and that you will be a global citizen. And that's something that all of us should take to heart and realize that there's one earth and that we're all a part of it.
And you just heard all of that wisdom from Dr. Peggy Bradford. And we appreciate you, and we look forward to coming into your listening audience again real soon. Have a great, great, great day.